Here is nothing. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Julia. If you're new here, it's nice to meet you. Today we're doing a little sit down video talking about the recruiting process for college athletics, mainly volleyball because that's what I do. If you do not know, I am currently a junior. Athletically, I have 2 seasons left. I've been through the recruiting process like 3 times. My experience has been not the most typical, but I've just learned a lot from it. It wasn't fun, like definitely did not enjoy it, would not do it again. Like I said, I just feel like I've learned a lot, so if I can share that with you guys and help in any way, I would love that. I did want to start with a disclaimer though, just by saying that these tips or just anything I have to say, it's based off of my experience. I understand that not everyone's is the same. Recruiting may be a breeze for you, especially if you are one of the top recruits in the country. If you are, I don't really know why you'd be watching this video, but things are probably just going to come a lot easier to you. But for the other 99% of athletes, you have to work at recruiting. It is very hard. Like, you have to put in the time and effort to get out what you want. And a lot of it is luck and timing, but you cannot expect coaches to come knocking at your door. That's just not going to happen. So yeah, let's get into it. I began my process as a freshman in high school. I think that's a normal time to start because one of the questions I got was, when did you start? I'm just gonna say the sooner the better because spots fill up. Time is really of the essence, so the sooner you start, the better off you will be because there will be more opportunities. But also, it's very hard to think about where you're going to college when you are 13, you know? So make sure you start when you're ready, but also don't waste time. Don't kick the can on it like I did because you'll regret it. I just started by emailing a bunch of coaches that I thought that I was interested in the school. Like, I probably emailed the University of Florida. Yeah, just like schools like that, which obviously I had no chance of playing at, but I was young and hopeful. Most of the responses I got from that like first batch of emails were just like, hey, here are our camp dates, come to our camps, which makes sense. They're trying to make their money, and also that is when a lot of recruiting is done because sometimes coaches can't make it to your tournaments or your games, or maybe you're really far away. So going to a camp, going to like one of their elite camps where they bring in recruits, that is a way that a lot of people do end up being seen and then eventually offered. But basically nothing happened from that for me because, like I said, I just wasn't mentally ready. I just kept procrastinating. Another question that I got was, did you play at a well-known club? How did your club status influence your college career? I played at multiple clubs since I started. I actually began playing club at the age of 9, so I did in total 9 seasons of club. The one that I was at the most is called Pittsburgh Elite, and it's a very well-known club in my city, but you gotta understand, like, Pittsburgh volleyball is not on the same level as even Philly volleyball, especially like down south or out west. Like, it's just completely different. But that being said, my club did make an effort when it came to recruiting. Like, they were very helpful, always there if you needed anything, and also there were some well-known people who worked there and have connections with people at other colleges, and they just know coaches around. That could help, and I'm sure it has helped other people that have gone through that club, but for me, it didn't make a difference. When I look back on recruiting and think about what I would have done different, the very first thing would be not limiting myself to a particular area. At first, I was so dead set on going south. I wanted to be where it's warm, by a beach, which I don't blame myself, but I was just so narrow-minded like that. I was not considering any schools that weren't in North Carolina, South Carolina, or Florida. This automatically right off the bat made it more challenging for me because I'm not going to tournaments down there. They're just not seeing me. Also, a lot of times coaches don't particularly want to recruit people from really far away because the odds of them transferring may be a little bit higher. This isn't always the case, but some coaches do think like that. They'd rather bring on people more local because there's a higher chance that they won't end up leaving. But yeah, tip number 1 is basically don't get too caught up in tiny details right away. Don't be so narrow-minded when you just begin your process because you're going to limit yourself a lot. It's more than okay to have an idea of what exactly you are looking for. That is good. You want to know what you want to get out of your college experience. But when you just start the process completely limiting yourself to other options, it just makes it really hard. As my dad would always say, you want to cast a wide net, put out some feelers, see what you get back. You don't want to only email 5 schools because what if all 5 of them already have their recruiting done for that class? What if they don't have any money left? There are other factors besides you just being a good player that all tie into this. That's why I said a lot of times luck and timing really does make a difference. But yeah, reaching out to as many schools as you can at first is a good thing. Another question I got was, did you use a recruiting platform or did you reach out to coaches personally? So I definitely was on a couple different platforms like NCSA, Recruiter, High School Athletes. I think there were a few more. All my information was on there, like my stats, some film, my height, weight, but nothing came of it. I don't even think I went on a visit because of those platforms. Did they help me? No. I did pretty much all of the work myself, but will they help other people? I don't know. So that is up to you. Also, things can change within like 3 years, and especially with COVID, maybe coaches are using those platforms more because there are less in-person events. I don't know. So I'm not going to tell you not to use them just because it didn't work for me. At some point, you are going to want to narrow down a list of schools to reach out, enough to reach out. I'm not saying like only pick a couple, pick a lot, but make sure you pick ones that you do have some interest in. And this is when you want to send an introductory email. If you go on that school's website and you go to their athletics and roster, you can find the coaches' names, numbers, emails, stuff like that. It'd be an office number, not a cell number. You can come up with a little generic email saying who you are, your height, position, grad year, stuff like that, where you're from, that you're interested in the program. It's also good to mention little details about it, like if you learned something from their website, or say maybe it's a school that you grew up watching and you've been to their games. Like mentioning that is good, because the more personalized you can make it, the more likely you are to get a response back. You want to be very careful if you are sending a generic email and you're just copy and pasting. You want to make sure that you put the right coaches' names on, you put the right school. This happens now more like with brands and social media, but I've had people reach out to me and say like dear in the wrong name. And I'm like, okay, well, clearly you were sending this to someone else. You probably meant to send it to me too, but you completely forgot to even change the name. I'm not responding. Same thing with a coach. If you say dear and you put the wrong coach's name, they're most likely not going to get back to you. It's embarrassing, it's awkward, so just make sure you do take that time to check that you are sending the right email to the right person. Now, this is my next tip, and I absolutely cannot stress this enough. This is my biggest regret with recruiting. You need to call the coaches. You cannot just send an email and leave it at that. Coaches get hundreds, if not thousands of emails, especially the bigger schools, and you're just a name in a big list. So unless your subject title is 6'7" middle hitter, there's a chance that they may not click on it and they may not see you right away. What you can do is at the end of the email, you can put your phone number and you can say, hey, I'd absolutely love to get on the phone sometime. Let me know what works best for you. Or you could say, I'll be calling around this time, and you can use the office number that is listed on the website, or if you do eventually like communicate with them enough to get a cell phone number. My parents were so adamant and on me about calling them, and I just didn't want to, especially with our generation. Like, it's very uncomfortable to pick up a phone and call someone you don't know. You know, in high school, you're just a kid and you're calling these grown people, and it can be nerve-wracking. It definitely can be intimidating. I know there are certain rules for when a coach can and can't call you, especially when you're younger. There are more rules, and there are like dead periods throughout the year when they are allowed to be on the phone and not. So I'm not sure of those rules anymore. They changed a bunch just when I was in the process, so they could be way different now. It's definitely good to know when you can and can't, and just the specifics of the rules. I can't help you there, I'm sorry. I'm sure you can find it on like the internet or something. Another thing you can do is call the office number and leave a message. I think that's also a good way of introducing yourself, because you're gonna stand out. There's definitely gonna be way less messages on the phone than there are emails that they get. And it also kind of shows the coaches like, okay, she's serious. This person has some cojones. Like, it's not easy, and they recognize that, especially when you are younger. Just do it. Just do it, and you're gonna have to do it later in life at some point. You're better off just getting past that block now. Another thing, you know, like hindsight's always 20/20. Looking back, I wish that I did take my health and fitness a little bit more seriously. At the time, I was trying to get recruited as an outside hitter, and I was mainly just emailing Division I schools. You guys may not know, I'm pretty short. I'm only 5'8". That's really short for volleyball, especially if you want to play front row at all. So now looking back on it, I wish that I was in the shape that I am now, because I do jump higher. I definitely touch higher than I used to, and that right there is a selling point. Being able to put in my email how high my touch is, that can help. And maybe some of those coaches would have taken me a little bit more seriously, especially with film too. I would have just been more agile, and again, it would have helped my game, which would have in turn helped recruiting. So that is something I do kind of like regret a little bit, but you know, it is what it is. What can you do? For those reasons, I got a lot of no's, which leads me to tip number 3. You are going to get a lot of no's, way more no's than yeses, and that is okay. I know it can hurt. Trust me, rejection is not fun, especially if it's your dream school and they're like, hey, we don't have a spot for you, or we're not interested. It sucks. The last thing you want to do after that is go and reach out to like 20 more coaches. But you got to do it. You have to keep persevering through it, and that is a life lesson. You have the choice to believe that everything happens for a reason. That school just was not meant for you. You are not meant to be there. Even if it is what you want most in that moment, there is a reason that you're not going there, and it will work out. That's a choice to have that mindset, because if you say, oh, they said no, they rejected me, this is the end of the world, I'm done, where is that going to get you? You have to say, okay, it wasn't for me, there's something better out there, and work towards finding that. That's the best mindset you can have really when it comes to anything, but especially recruiting. It will discourage you. How you move on from that is going to affect the way things turn out. The summer before my senior year, this is pretty late, that is when I had 4 offers. They were all from Division II schools. 2 were actually in the conference that I'm in now, not this school that I'm at, but same conference. The other 2 were in a different conference down south. One was in North Carolina and the other was in South Carolina. Now, like I said, I really wanted to go down there. That was my whole point of recruiting. But then when I actually visited these schools and I get there, one, I think they both just like weren't the right fit for me, but also it hit me how far away it actually was. And then I think, oh wait, my grandparents won't be able to come see me play. I may see my parents a couple times a semester. In theory, I thought I'd be okay with that. And then when I actually got there and realized it, I wasn't okay with that at all. Yeah, that is why I changed my mind last minute, but it goes back to the first tip I gave you, not limiting yourself, because I spent years being determined to go down south, and then last minute I'm like, wait, this actually isn't what I wanted. So think about how many opportunities I had that I was like, don't want it. Also around this time, I was talking to a couple of Division I schools, all as walk-ons. So we're gonna talk a little bit about being a walk-on. If you don't know what that means, you're not getting an athletic scholarship. Now there are preferred walk-ons who are recruited like any other athlete, you're on the team, whatever, but again, you're just not getting that scholarship. And at the time, I really just wanted to play Division I volleyball. Like, I wanted to play at the highest level I could, which kind of leads me into the next question that I got, which is, how did you decide which division to play? Spoiler alert, I ended up committing to the Division I school, even though I wasn't getting any money. And the main reason was because I really just wanted to play a high level of volleyball. But something I do want to talk about, because this happens a lot, is people will commit to a Division I school because of how they think it makes them look. And it can be very easy to get caught up in the process when you're seeing all these people like post their commitment picture, post their signing day picture, and it's like, wow, look at them, they're so cool, they're going to this big school, they're playing Division I. Like I said, it can get easy to be kind of sucked in by that and really just go for what you think is going to make you look good, and you may be doing that subconsciously. But at the end of the day, when you get there in the fall, no one else remembers. Like, everyone forgets. They go on with their life, and you are the one that's there doing the 5 a.m. wake-ups, the multiple practices a day, the traveling. You may not be getting the role that you thought you would or that you wanted. It's a lot. It's a very big commitment. Basically, when it comes to deciding which division you want to play in, you just need to choose the school that's the best fit for you all around. Because the last thing you want to do is get there and then transfer after a semester. Which is what I did, but that's not why. But I did want to touch on that because that is something that happens a lot. And then there was Division III. And for me, the reason I never considered Division III is because of the athletic thing. You don't get an athletic scholarship in Division III. It's all academic. So that is something to think about too. There's nothing wrong with playing Division III. There are some very, very good Division III teams, but it's a money thing. Okay, so now a little bit about my experience at my first school. I committed there at the very end of my senior season, and then a little bit less than a year later, got there, moved in. I switched positions actually. Like I said, I wasn't outside, but I wasn't a good enough outside. I don't know, I just wasn't tall enough, didn't jump high enough to hit at the school that I was at, so I switched over to a defensive specialist. I hadn't played that position since I was 9 years old. So basically I get there, I'm the worst DS naturally. All the other people in the same position, they've been playing that for years. So I'm competing with those people for a spot on the court. I didn't get it right away. Kinda actually, I mean, at our first tournament, the person in front of me didn't do so hot, so I got put in and I did well. I did better than anyone expected. So I earned a little spot there and I kept that throughout all of preseason, and it was absolutely the coolest experience of my career. We played the University of Pittsburgh, we played Cincinnati, we played Indiana, Kentucky, Florida Gulf Coast, South Carolina, like huge schools that I grew up watching on TV. And I couldn't even fathom being on the opposite side of the net from these teams, so it was just a very cool experience, and I absolutely loved that part. All I wanted was to play a really high level volleyball, and I got it. Then later into the season, lost my spot, couldn't pass a ball to save my life, lost my confidence completely. After that season, I made the decision that I'm not happy with where I'm at athletically, and that is when I completely like flipped a switch, changed my lifestyle, started eating healthier, started taking lifting more seriously, and just learned how to fuel my body properly. And that's what got me into fitness, and that's why I have this YouTube, that's why I have my Instagram, TikTok, everything like that. Athletically, I was in much better shape after my winter break off, and then I came back to school in January. At that point, I made the decision that I wanted to transfer, and the main reason was because of money. I am paying for my own college. I had to take out student loans. The school that I was at, on the grand scheme of things, like, it is not that expensive. It was 21 grand a year for out of state for me, when the average in the US is probably like 50 grand a year. But over that winter break, I started to see like my sister's student loans and how they were affecting her, and then my parents who were co-signed to them. And then I realized I don't want to be 85 grand in debt coming out of college with a bachelor's communication degree. Walking on at first, it sounded like a great idea. I'm like, you know what, it's not that expensive. I get to play Division I volleyball. I like the campus. It's not that far from home. But then it hits me and I'm like, I had absolutely no concept of money when I committed. And most people don't. So that is something to think about if you are paying for your own tuition. It's just something to think about. So at that point, I decided to enter the transfer portal, but I still wanted to play Division I. So I tried. I reached out to a bunch of different Division I schools, but the hard thing is I was still a defensive specialist. And if you don't know, that is the position that gets like no money, little to no money. All the money goes to the big hitters, the setters, and then the DSs kind of get screwed over. So most coaches would be like, yeah, sorry, we don't have money for a DS. Also, as a transfer, it's harder to get money too, because most of the scholarships on teams are like already given out. They have a team, they're not actively looking for that class unless someone leaves. And also, we're getting into spring of 2020 and y'all know what happened. COVID hit and I came home for spring break and I never went back to school except for to clean out my room and get my stuff. But like, I only visited one school before COVID shut everything down. And that was a Division I school not too far from home that I really wanted to go to. Visit went well, talked to the coach. A couple days later, I decided to call him and commit to go there. And he was like, great, sounds good. We'll be in touch, blah, blah, blah. And then the next day he texted me and he said, we might have to put those plans on hold. And I was like, what? And mind you, when you call a coach and commit there, the next thing you have to do is call all of the other coaches that you were talking to and tell them no. So I called the coach at the school I was at because there was still a chance I would be staying there, and I had to tell him no, not coming back. And I called every other school that I was in communication with and said, no, I'm not coming. So yeah, he texts me and says, never mind, and then calls me later that day and is like, yeah, we need a middle hitter, which is the opposite of me. It's like the tallest person on the team. Basically, both of their middles had ankle surgery and they needed to recruit another one. And I'm like, why didn't you think of this before you told me to come to your program? It's really shitty. Like, I don't know how a coach could do that to a player, but this stuff actually happens more than you think. And at the end of the day, it's a business, and you need to look out for your best interest because other coaches aren't. They care about themselves and their job and their program, so like, you have to look out for you. After this happened, I was literally depressed. I just kind of sat at home. It was quarantine, couldn't leave, couldn't do anything, and I just cried. I just cried about it for a couple weeks, which is like not my proudest moment. It was just really hard, and like mentally I was exhausted, and I didn't have it in me to start all over again and reach out to coaches from square one again. I was like, I'm running out of schools. I've reached out to everyone. So after a couple weeks of that, I decided to reach out to a coach that I had talked to the first time I was trying to get recruited and the second time. Both of those times he was there. I called him back again because I was this close to dropping out of school, quitting volleyball, just being like, screw it, I'm done with it all. Called him again and I was like, I can't believe I'm in this situation. But what I've learned is I really just want to feel valued by a coach. I don't want to feel expendable, because that's how this whole process has made me feel. And he was so nice and he was like, I'm sorry, but I'm going to top your bad news with my bad news and let you know that I just got fired. Again, cried more, was just kind of in disbelief at what my life was and how I had zero options. But then after sulking for a little bit more through a family friend who also happens to be a coach, he connected me with the coach here where I'm at now. Got on the phone with her and she really just made me feel what like all those coaches didn't. That was what mattered. I was like, I just want to be valued as a player at this point. Like, I want to feel like I'm a real person, not just a number. I wasn't able to go on a real visit. Me and my family drove up to the campus and just like walked around, but I wasn't able to see any of the facilities, meet any of the coaches in person or the team or anything, but I ended up committing here. It was just a really good fit academically, especially they have a social media minor. Who has that? But like, that's exactly what I'm looking for. They have a really good media program, not too far from home. Also, the team is pretty good. And like I said, I love the coaches. So it was just a good fit. So now I am at a Division II school and I'm back to hitting. So that's another thing. That's a plus, is like here I am able to hit. And so far volleyball has gone really well. I'm excited for the last 2 seasons if I ever get out of quarantine. And that is basically my story in the shortest form I could possibly put it in. There's so much more to it. More that I don't particularly want to put on the internet yet, and also more that for the sake of time I just won't say. Recruiting is something I look back on and think, thank God that I never have to do that again. But there are still aspects of my everyday life that do mimic it, especially the career that I'm in now. I have to pitch myself to brands. It's the same thing as trying to sell myself, you know, to a team. Like, these are the reasons why you should want me. And the same goes with really any job and like applying and a resume and stuff like that. You have to convince people to bring you on and to give you money. It also prepared me for calling up brands, people I don't know, and again, pitching myself. So looking back, I'm glad I did have that experience because it has prepared me for today. I just want to end this video by saying, if you are in the recruiting process or about to be, good luck. It will test your confidence and your character, but how you respond to the situations that may not be totally ideal, that's how you grow. And I know going through such hard experiences made me the person I am today. So embrace the suck, grind it out, work your ass off, and it'll be okay. It all will work out. Just know the more effort and work you put into it now, the better off you'll be down the line. I think I'm done. Holy crap. If you watched this all, thank you so much. I hope that some of my experience gives you guys some help and insight. If you have any specific questions, let me know in the comments. You can always DM me on Instagram. I'll try to get back to you and help as much as I can, because I know it's hard and I just want the best for everyone. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.